All right, this is a video overview for circuit workout number 2 for everything, right? So what I mean by everything is we have some dumbbells, some bands, a stability ball. Just one quick comment before I start the exercise review is if you haven't watched the first video for the first circuit, please watch that first. There's a little tutorial at the beginning about safety and setup. It's important you watch that first and talk about adjusting the reps as needed because for this video I'm just going to really review the different exercises. Okay, so if you didn't watch that, jump back, watch that first, and then get back to this one. All right, so our first workout on here, our first exercise on here rather is our pot stirs. Okay, so you could really mix this up or make this hard a little easier if you need to. In the series of exercises, these pot stirs are probably the most challenging exercise. Okay, so we could take a step back to push-outs. We could take a step back to stability ball planks with our feet elevated on something like that over there, or our feet on the ground, or we don't even need to use a stability ball. If our skill level is at just doing regular planks right now, that's completely fine too. Okay, but for our pot stirs, very similar to our push-outs as far as I'm just maneuvering my forearms and my upper body and keeping that good plank position. Except the movement pattern is a little different. So instead of pushing up and back, I'm doing an arcing motion side to side. So just like any of our planking exercises in the stability ball, I want to get a good base first, so make sure my hips and my back are in a good alignment, and then from here I'm just going to arc, okay, to and away from me. So I'm kind of pushing away, and I'm kind of working down towards my hips on the way back. But for this one, what you want to do is utilize a slower tempo. For sure. Slower is better with this one, especially because if you go too fast too, we risk also sliding off the side of the ball. All right, so now we're going to get into alternating between our upper and our lower body, and within our upper body between our pulling exercises and our pushing exercises. Our first one we have is our side plank band rows. So for this one, remember, combination exercise. We're doing our side plank and we're doing a rowing exercise all at once, right? So whatever band you utilize, just make sure there's tightness throughout, right? So sometimes we get too close to the anchor and there's slack, okay? We want to make sure that we're back far enough that there's tension. You can see it throughout. Once I'm here, I squeeze that bottom butt cheek, I pull that top shoulder back so everything's going to align, and then I'm just squeezing in. And as I let that band go back towards the anchor, I'm not letting that top shoulder get pulled towards it, right? So good side plank position, and then add that row squeezing into the side of our rib cage, okay? Do all one side and the other for that. Next one is, there's kind of two options here, is our either goblet or sumo squats. Again, we just want to do a squatting exercise here, right? So for this, whether you hold a dumbbell in our goblet position like this, or we hold it sumo style in between our legs, both are definite options here. What I would say is if you're a low back person, so you have any low back issues, I would lean towards the sumo, okay? And also I would try to, if possible, elevate your feet a little bit, because what you'll see here is if I'm just flat on the ground, it kind of limits my depth a little bit if I do the sumo variety, especially depending on the size and the makeup of your dumbbell or the kettlebell or whatever you're using, right? So you might have to stand on something. Remember, in the weight room, we'll stand on like 2 benches, right? So we'll have our feet up, one bench and the other, and we'll go in between the benches with the dumbbell. You can create that setup at your house if you need to, but if we don't have the low back issues, I would probably suggest doing the goblet style here, okay? And just remember, a lot of times for that, since we can't watch our depth, we don't have a coach watching our depth, or maybe a mirror to watch our depth, a good cue for that, as far as hitting our spot, is when our elbows come in contact with our knees, okay? Now, again, some of us have different body compositions and makeups, right? But in general, that's usually a pretty safe cue. When that happens, we're low enough and it's ready to come back up, okay? Our next exercise is our 1-1-2 dumbbell bench. So I'm going to do these on a stability ball, okay? So for this, when we see the 1-1-2, that is the sequence, all right? And each one of those is 1 rep, okay? So what I mean by that is, maybe I'm going to lead with my left arm, for example, okay? Both are down. I'm going to do left, right, both. That's 1 rep. Then I'm going to lead with the opposite hand. Right, left, both, and that's rep 2. And I'm just going to keep alternating. Left, right, both, right, left, both. Again, until I get through the reps that I'm shooting for, right? Now, one comment on that is, oftentimes when I see us doing this in the weight room, we want to leave that one arm up. So the dumbbell that's not moving, we leave it up, okay? I would suggest not doing that, right? If we were just bodybuilding, that wouldn't be the worst thing. But for athletes, especially for a throwing athlete, that's a lot of tension on that shoulder, right? And kind of unnecessarily. Plus that shoulder muscle is fatiguing, I think, more rapidly than we probably want. We want to focus on that chest, right? So I would suggest, highly suggest, keeping both down, right? So when they're not moving, it's down, right? So again, one arm is moving at a time, or both, or when we get to the sequence, both, okay? And when they're not, they're resting down here. We're not locking them out. So if we're doing any of these on a stability ball, right, we just want to make sure that we get in a good alignment with our hips. So I want to rock out, right? So my hips and my feet are away from the ball. I'm not letting my butt sag here. I'm not turning it into an incline. I also don't want to lay on the middle of the ball, okay? Because that kind of defeats the purpose. We're not really engaging our core. Plus, it's going to put your neck in an awkward position. It might interfere with your form a little bit, right? So instead, I'm going to walk out here. I'm going to squeeze those butt cheeks, okay? I'm going to make sure that my hips are locked out, and then I'm doing the press, right? So again, it's left, right, both, right, left, both, and then I just keep repeating that sequence until I get all the way through the exercise, okay? Next one is our dumbbell or band side lunge, okay? So I'm going to review the side lunge on there, and then I'm going to show us 2 ways that we can add resistance, and you can even do both of them if you really wanted to, right? So for our side lunge, remember, I'm going to show us from the front angle and from a side angle. We want our toes to stay in the same alignment. I do not want to step forward. If anything, I want to step slightly back. Okay, so what I mean by that is, hopefully you can see this little line in my mat right here. When I step to the side, I'm stepping on the same plane or the same line. I'm not stepping forward here. Okay, that's really important. And when I step, I'm going to turn back to the side, my trail leg stays straight, and my right leg, I just want to sit on that heel and use this butt cheek, the one that's sitting, to drive me back up, right, to provide all the momentum, okay? So whether you start from a standstill, from a march position, okay, we're gonna step directly to the side, we're gonna sit on this heel right here, use this butt cheek right here to drive back up, okay? So whether we choose to pause at the bottom, pause at the top, hold that march position, those are little tweaks that we can do to make it harder or easier, or maybe make it more sport specific relative to the position you play or the sport that you play. But just make sure we're getting good depth, this trail leg is straight, we're not cheating and bending it, okay? And we don't want to come forward on those toes or step forward, right? All our weight back on that butt cheek and that heel. Okay, so how do we add resistance to that? We can hold a dumbbell. Hold a dumbbell, and I'd say lighter. Lighter is better for our side lunges. We get way too heavy with these sometimes, okay? So you can hold this goblet style. Okay, some people I've seen we hold it here or here. I prefer, again, we're just adding body weight whenever we hold something goblet style, right? So this is what I would suggest if you're adding resistance with a dumbbell, okay? You could also do it with a band, okay? We can take our band, we can wrap it around the pillar. If we're gonna get inside of the band, okay, I think I might have commented this on the first video. Make sure those shorts are tied, okay, so we don't lose our pants as we're going along. Okay, I know we're in the safe confines of our house more than likely when we're doing this, but it's going to interfere with your circuit. So if we do it this way, the nice thing is the band's going to pull us down or pull our hips in the direction that it needs to go. I would suggest anchoring it between knee and hip height, because what I've found is, unless you're using a really thin band, like my red guy here, or like the yellow ones we have in the weight room, then you could probably get away with a low anchor, because I found there's too much tension, right? If we have that low anchor with a medium or large band, I almost want to slingshot you back into the anchor, okay? But it's the same idea. I'm going to slide out, I'm going to do the same motion, stepping directly to the side, and then I'm driving up. Now, for this, you want to let that band pull your hips down. And really, if you wanted to, you could combine both of those. You could do that while holding the dumbbell, okay? So again, mixing and matching to find what works best for you, okay? Next one is our dumbbell pullovers. So we can do the pullovers on a bench. We could do them on my homemade bench here, or we could do them on a stability ball, okay? So I'll demo them in two different ways, right? So first, if we're laying across here, okay, or a bench or some boards on between two chairs, we want to lay perpendicular, okay? We don't want to lay parallel with it like we're laying on a regular bench, right? And similar to what you heard me say with the dumbbell bench is hips locked out, right? So lock those hips out, okay? But you want your shoulders, your head, your neck to rest, okay? We could also do them on the stability ball, and some of us have done them on the stability ball. My only comment about that is, if you're doing them on the stability ball, just know that because of the instability, you need to be a little bit more cautious and maybe use a little bit less weight, especially if you don't have a lot of experience with this. If you've never done pullovers or haven't done pullovers much and you're picking and choosing between, I would use the bench or a stable surface first, okay? Because it is an overhead exercise. It is putting yourself in a slightly vulnerable position. It is an awkward motion if you haven't done it much, okay? So again, just be smart, be cautious, okay? So on the stability ball, I'm gonna look just like I did when I was doing the bench, right? I'm gonna rock out with my hips. Now, the trap here is to turn this into a skull crusher, because truthfully it does look like that, right? So if you've ever done a skull crusher, some sort of tricep extension, right? You get in a similar setup. This is not targeting your triceps. Think of this as a lat exercise, really that deep in that armpit area. The cue I like to give a lot of athletes when we're doing these in the weight room is actually go around and do this and touch that armpit area so you get the feel, oh, that's what we're looking for here, because we're doing this. It's like a pull over, pull down, similar to our ball throw downs. It's more of a lat exercise than anything, okay? So how do we accomplish that? We're gonna cup the bottom side of the dumbbell. We're gonna rock out. Now from here, I'm gonna have a slight bend in my elbows and I'm gonna maintain that the whole time. And the range of motion is from the front of my face to where I start to feel a good stretch, right in my armpit now, and then I'm gonna come back up. Again, if you're doing these for the first time, watch your depth, watch your range of motion, don't overdo it. The other thing is, at the bottom here, I'm gonna feel a stretch in my abdominals, and as I pull it back over, I'm almost like crunching. I feel a crunching motion, helping to pull that dumbbell weight back up, which is another reason why we wanna lay perpendicular or away from the stability ball with our hips, okay? So we engage that core. Again, full body exercises, train the whole machine, train to be athletes here, okay? So just be smart with your weight selection, especially if you've never done that before, and don't get carried away, overhead throwers, with that, okay? Just be smart, baseball, softball players. Okay, next one is our dumbbell RDL. So we could do our band RDLs if you want. Again, we could mix and match RDLs, but for this, the dumbbell RDLs, this is both at the same time. Truthfully, this is, I've found over my years of coaching, this is one of the hardest ones to initially instruct. Just because it's a weird motion, it's awkward, a lot of it depends on your body makeup and composition, your flexibility, your mobility. So it's just, until you get a feel for it, and you kind of groove in that technique, it can feel a little weird, right? So what we're trying to do is we're target that hamstring, okay? And really, right underneath our butt is where we should really feel this most, the top of our hamstring, right? And I'm essentially doing that by unhinging my hips and letting my butt go diagonally down and back, okay? So in the video, I can see that stability ball behind me. It's almost like I'm trying to touch my butt back to that stability ball behind me, okay? I wouldn't say it's a mistake, but the most common movement pattern that I see in the weight room is just going straight back, unhinging your hips, okay? And a lot of times, like some of us that are really flexible, right? We'll do that and we'll go all the way down and touch the dumbbells to the floor, right? So that's why we want to get that downward motion. That'll actually really help us with our squat too, okay? Allowing, when we unhinge those hips, to have them go diagonally down and back. The other mistake I see is we overbend our knees, okay? So when we do this, as I'm letting those dumbbells kind of slide down in front of my body, okay? We want to start with a slight bend in our knees, right? With a slight unhinge and then not bend them anymore. A lot of times we do like a half RDL, half squat where we're kind of like doing this, okay? We want to stretch that hamstring by letting that butt go down and back. And then once I feel that good stretch, I'm squeezing my butt and bringing my hips here at the top, no matter how far down that you're going, okay? And the third most common mistake I see is we let our shoulders fade forward, which is why, again, in a circuit, I wouldn't do super heavy weight with these, especially because it's further down in the sequence, right? The other thing is when we do heavier weight, especially when we're fatigued, we tend to do this, let our shoulders come forward. And you can see right now, I'm arching my back, right? So anytime we kind of lurch forward or let their shoulders roll forward, now I see space in my armpits, we get more emphasis here than here, okay? You definitely are gonna feel this in your low back if you do this correctly, but where you should mostly feel this is a stretch throughout the length of your hamstring, especially right underneath your butt. That's very, very important, okay? And a good cue for this is you should squeeze your armpits, right? So if as you're doing this, you feel a space, like you could someone could slide their fingers in your armpit, okay, as you're doing this exercise, that means your shoulders are fading forward too much or you're rolling forward. Keep those shoulders squeezed. That's gonna do two things. Keep those shoulders back in a good alignment and also keep that chest puffed out, right? So we get that hamstring action, all right? So try, especially if you're one of those athletes that goes all the way to the floor, try to start working that butt diagonally down and back if you can. All right, so that's our RDLs. We can add a band component to that too, but I would imagine most of us will do the demo that I just did right there, okay? Our next one is our military press. So either dumbbell or band. So we could do a dumbbell. So a military press is whether we're holding bands in our hands or a band in our hand, a dumbbell or dumbbells in our hand, okay? We're starting from basically our collarbone, top of our chest area, and extending straight up overhead, okay? So I can do that with my dumbbells here, okay? Just like that. And if I want, I can get a little bit of a pop, right? But we don't want to turn it into like a squat and press, right? So we want to, again, not use too much momentum, but okay, if you want to get a little bit of a dip there, that's fine. Or we can do these with the band. So let's do this one. I can do that by stepping inside the band, bringing it to my top of my chest, and then pressing. I could do a single arm here and do the same thing. Maybe I have two of them, one in each hand, and I'm doing that. Again, insert military press exercise here, okay? But overhead, be careful. Don't get crazy with your weight. Again, because this is like one of the last things in a circuit. So if we're fatigued, our chest, our shoulders are fatigued, we don't want to be messing around with crazy heavy weight going overhead, especially overhead throwing athletes. Be smart with that. Okay, and our last one is our band resistant bird dog. So we don't even have to utilize the band. If regular bird dogs are doing it, or you're just, you go through the sequence once and you're like, I'm crushed. I need to do something to take a step back here. You can just do regular bird dogs, okay? But I think a lot of us are probably at the point where we can make them a little more challenging by adding a thin band, not a thick. Even the medium ones, I probably wouldn't recommend doing, especially if you're a shorter athlete, you might be able to get away with it. But if you're a little bit taller, longer, it's just a long way to go with those medium or large bands. Okay, so. Just, again, review of a bird dog, right? We're extending opposite hand and opposite heel. So I have a wall on this side of me, I have a wall behind me. What I'm trying to do is touch my fingertips to that wall, touch my heel to that wall, and finish with a flat back with my butt squeezed, nice and tight, okay? So again, I'm extending and squeezing, right? So I should be one long parallel body to the floor right now. And this butt I'm squeezing right now is engaged, and that's gonna make my whole hamstring fire too, which is a great injury prevention for lower back. So how do we add a band to this? All we're gonna do is loop one part of the band through our thumb, put the other one in our foot, okay? Right now it's passing through between my two legs here, if you can see that, and now I'm just using that to add some resistance, okay? So again, I'm doing the same motion, I'm just adding this little band resistance there. Again, probably a small, maybe a medium for some of us, we could use for that, but if you just want to do them on air, that's fine, okay? Now the one thing is if you use the band, you're not going to be able to alternate sides. So normally we alternate one side and the other. For the band, you're just going to have to do all one. Not a big deal for that, Okay, so that's your 9 exercises. You're gonna go through those in order, take a little break, do your round 2, take a little break, do your round 3, and then you're gonna finish with the core exercises, okay? So one of the core exercises I already kind of commented on the last one as far as our jackknives or stability ball jackknives. The other ones are stability ball passes, but again, the theme for this is we want to try to use the stability ball for some core exercises, right? So you can mix and match between the 2 days, you can go beyond this, but for the ones that I have on there, our jackknives, we're going to start in that push-up position. And all I'm trying to do from here is push my butt straight up in the air as high as I can, and then come back down, okay? So again, it's a controlled motion. I'm breathing, I'm not holding my breath. I'm thinking about using my whole body for this exercise, okay? And you could, like I mentioned in the first video, you could, just like we do on the TRX straps in the weight room, is alternate between the jackknives and the knee tucks, mix and match. It's really up to you. The other exercises are passes, right? So we do this a bunch of different ways. Sometimes we'll do this kind of with a partner in the weight room, or with the med balls, the big gray and black ones, right? For this, you're just gonna, assuming we don't have a partner, pass it back and forth to yourself, right? So my goal is, just like with most of our crunching core exercises, is at the bottom, right? When I'm all the way, my torso is laying on the ground, I'm not resting or letting my core become not be in a contracted state. So all I mean is, don't let your shoulder blades touch, right? So we're not resting our head and neck, we're not letting our shoulder blades touch, I'm crunching the whole time. So that core is nice and tight and contracted throughout the entire exercise, okay? So for this, I have this stability ball between my feet. Right now, my core is contracted. I'm gonna crunch up, pass it to myself, come back. Again, heels almost touch, shoulder blades almost touch, and then I'm just gonna keep passing it back and forth, right? Here and up. Here and up. And we want to be long for this, right? You want to be long. So one way to make it a little easier is, as you go down, not have your arms overhead, keep them out in front of you in this position, okay? That'll make it a little bit easier. Also, vary your tempo, right? So you could do faster, slower, for 5 seconds, for 10 seconds. That's another way to kind of manipulate it to make it harder or easier in your favor, okay? So we went through the 9 exercises. We went through the 2 core exercises. Any questions? Reach out. If not, let's get after it. Go Lehigh.